Welcome to the Astrology Show with your host, Kelly Fox. Each week, Kelly will give you access to the current transits that are a valuable tool which provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has through our sun sign. Understanding the current planetary influences each week can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. Sometimes events in your life may seem completely random, but there is a pattern to the order of these events, one set in motion in part by you and in part by the planets and stars in the sky and their influence on your life here on Earth. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, if you're going to get that promotion, move to a new city, or fall in love, tune in to the Astrology Show for guidance. It can help you anticipate problems before they occur, give you tools to cope with changes, and help you look forward to the wonderful days ahead. Kelly Fox is a professional astrologer and internet pioneer who launched astrology.com, one of the first and most successful astrology websites. Today, her passion lies with her new site, theastrologer.com, where she brings a modern-day approach to an ancient wisdom. Please join Kelly each week to learn more about how the planets can align for you.
Hi there, and welcome to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, and I'm going to be talking about the planets this week. So the big news of the week is action planet Mars finally turns direct after more than 6 weeks of being retrograde. We also had yesterday a full moon in Pisces. So they're the two big headlines of the week. And so with Mars retrograde, it turned retrograde on June 26th. So that's 2 months ago. So that's been a long time. So we've been a long time waiting for Mars to turn direct. It turned retrograde in Aquarius, and then it continued its backward movement. Although we know that the planets do not move backwards, they just appear to be moving backwards from our perspective here on Earth. So that's what retrograde means. And the interpretation of that is the energies of a retrograde planet go inward, or they also move backward, or we have to redo something from the past. So with this Mars retrograde period, many of us may have been feeling or dealing with anger or temper issues, and these may have turned inward because of Mars being retrograde instead of being openly expressed. So the good news is that Mars, let me just look at my calendar here, this morning turned direct. And so also with this full moon in Pisces, there's a lot of compassion and people feeling sensitive at the moment and touching other people's hearts and feeling romantic with the Pisces full moon. And, so it's important to spend time with the people you care about, the people who care about you. And it's a time for compassion, using your intuition, creativity, sensitivity, etc. So this full moon in Pisces, what makes it important is that it's forming, or it formed, I should say, because it was yesterday, it formed a sextile to Saturn in Capricorn and a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. Now, Saturn and Uranus were part of a grand Earth trine on Saturday that involved the Sun. So a grand Earth trine is one of the most fortuitous configurations that we can have in astrology. And so on Saturday we had the Sun, Saturn and Uranus forming a triangle, or each planet at 120 degrees apart from each other, to form a triangle in the sky. And because they were in Earth signs, the Sun in Virgo, Saturn in Capricorn, Uranus in Taurus, Grand Earth Trine is all about financial affairs and future plans and thinking about our careers and so on. I will cover that in more detail in just a minute. But basically, this full moon in Pisces is forming or was forming a sextile to Saturn and Uranus, and then the day before the Sun was forming a trine to Saturn and Uranus. So the weekend, this past weekend that we've just had, has been a very potent one. So typically during a Pisces full moon, what it means is there's a lot of compassion and caring around us. You know, many people will feel good that we've touched other people's hearts or we're helping others. So, you know, typically in this world, you know, compassion, we could have a lot more compassion for each other and for ourselves, of course. So at this time, you know, we might be feeling a little more in touch with our feelings than at other times. We're highly sensitive to the nuance of even subtle gestures that reveal insights about other people, because the influence of Pisces is all about the world of intuition and sort of psychic ability. So, and operating on the subconscious level. So with this Pisces full moon that we've just had this weekend, which is still in effect, depending, of course, on where the Pisces full moon will fall in your own chart. And if you haven't had your chart done or you've never seen your chart wheel, go to my website, get a free chart wheel, and each week you can follow along, knowing where your planets are at the time you were born, which are called your natal planets. Each week you can see how the planetary influences are affecting you. So with this Pisces full moon, where does it fall in your chart? Well, if you're a water sign, and that's Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, this is good news for you. It will heighten your perceptions, your psychic abilities, your creativity, your instincts, your care and compassion for yourself and others. So it's like we're giving of ourselves with this influence, and it's very strongly placed because it's involved with a sextile to Saturn and a sextile to Uranus. Sextiles bring opportunities, and Saturn is the planet of really, in this case, I'm using positive keywords for Saturn, which is sort of unusual, but it will bring stability as well as looking beyond for innovative ideas. So basically, it's bringing the past and the future together. So with this Pisces full moon, you know, when it comes to your personal relationships, it's a time for empathy, be present with your feelings, and, you know, make your interactions more meaningful this week under the influence of this very fortuitous and strongly placed Pisces full moon. You know, great joy can come from spending time with those you love. Romance is highlighted with this Pisces full moon. So be sure to make the most of this lunar energy of the Pisces full moon. Now, with a full moon, you know, we have a full moon every month, and so it's hard to miss in the sky. It's a big round luminary that shines bright and really casts light on our Earth. Now, think back to hundreds of years ago when we didn't have electricity or street lights or any sort of lighting except probably candlelight. And so then you can imagine the impact that the full moon had each month. It lit the sky, and I can only imagine how much influence in people's conscious minds that the full moon had every month. So, you know, there's a lot of myths around full moons. You know, if you think of werewolves howling at the moon, did anybody see any werewolves howling at the moon? You know, people have been known to behave strangely during the full moon's display. And, of course, the ocean tides rise higher during a full moon because of the gravitational pull. And, you know, just think, humans, we're comprised of over 80% water. So, you know, the moon affects water on Earth, especially when it's a full moon. So that's why us as humans get affected because of all that water that we are comprised of. So with the full moon, you know, sometimes people say that they have a restless sleep and they toss and turn throughout the night, or have really vivid or action-filled dreams, especially with this Mars turning direct. So, the full moon in itself can trigger intuition, and now especially because we've got this full moon in Pisces. So this is a highly, highly psychic and intuitive energy that's affecting all of us. And as I said, in particular, the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, or anybody that has planets in water signs. This is a very potent moon for all of us, especially with the sextiles to Saturn and Uranus, part of the grand Earth trine of Saturday with the involvement of the Sun. So with the full moon, it's a lunar cycle. We have a full moon every month. The start of the cycle is the new moon, and the next new moon that we have is September 9th, and that will be the start of a new cycle. The full moon is the culmination or the middle part of the lunar cycle every month. Now, this full moon in Pisces, if you think about the energy of the full moon, you put that together with Pisces, and, it's all about the subconscious mind. It's about being a go with the flow. The symbol of Pisces is the fish, two fish swimming in different directions. And it's very much about going with the flow, but sort of not being able to decide which is the best direction, because Pisces is a mutable water sign. And so mutable means it's sort of like it doesn't have any fixed direction. It's definitely, can change course at any moment. So you apply these keywords with the full moon and think about, the past few days and then what the plans are for this week. And it's sort of like, don't have any type of fixed ideas or fixed paths. Just be open to listening to your instincts, your intuition, and helping that be the guide. And as I said, Pisces is a very romantic sign. So make sure that you've made the most of this energy, or you're planning to make the most of this energy with the people that you really care about. It's a good use of that. And of course, Pisces is ruled by Neptune. Neptune's a planet of illusion and fantasy and imagination. And so this is very much about using your creativity during this time with this Pisces full moon. And it's not just like an ethereal type of energy, because it's a sextile to Saturn. Saturn is a planet of reality. It's a very grounding energy. So this is a time when we can make make our dreams come true sounds a bit, can't think of the word, but it's sort of like it's time when we can really ground our ideas, our hopes, our wishes. We can really sort of put things into action. We can make things happen at this time, especially with the Mars turning direct. So you've got like the past and the present coming together. We're using our intuition. We're trusting our instincts. And with Mars turning direct in Capricorn, which is a sign it likes, it's a sign that can get stuff done. It's sort of like now we're in this sort of like portal of making things happen or making dreams a reality. We're right at this place where we can make the most of this incredible energy. The hard stuff is behind us for the moment. July and the first part of August were quite difficult with not just the eclipses, but Uranus turned retrograde. It formed a square to Mars. There was a lot of stuff many of us have been dealing with over the course of the Northern Hemisphere's summer. But now that's sort of behind us. And if you're in the US, we're looking ahead to Labor Day, and that's when things really start to get serious. We're in the season of Virgo. It's important to pay attention to the details and really take care of the little stuff at this time while the sun is in Virgo. And of course we've had this Mercury retrograde, which is, behind us now. So it's a time to really sort of make the most of opportunities that come our way. It's fairly, because, this full moon in Pisces forming this sextile to Saturn, it's very much about, taking things a little bit more seriously, like really not just listening to our intuition and sort of wondering. It's sort of like taking the steps around it to make things happen. We can get stuff done at this time. Many of us, even though the energy of the full moon at Pisces is a little bit nebulous, there's some focused energy going on because of the sextile to Saturn from the full moon. Many of us might be feeling focused or committed to completing our responsibilities. So it's sort of like taking things seriously at this time. And then with the sextile to Uranus from the full moon, there could be some like adventure in there or taking a little bit of a risk. There's some excitement brewing beneath the surface. This is it's a brief transit. It's a brief energy. The full moon was on Sunday, and then, the sextiles to Saturn and Uranus. It's very fleeting, but if it affects your natal chart, if any of these points, and that's the early degrees of the earth signs. So if you're an April-born Taurus, an August-born Virgo, or a December-born Capricorn, this is very exciting news for you. If you have any planets in the early degrees of the earth signs, this is very exciting. It's very fortuitous time for anybody that has these influences right at the early degrees of not just the earth signs, but also the water signs. And the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So, if you're born early in those signs, this is a reprieve from everything that's been going on throughout the summer, the past couple of months since Mars has been retrograde. So with the full moon forming this really opportunistic sextile to Uranus, it's very much excitement coming from old plans or finally being able to implement and take those steps forward into the future, and anything that's sort of technologically focused. So on that note, we're going to take a short break, so stay tuned.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hi, this is John Andrasik of Five for Fighting, here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. You know, style is a personal thing, and your lifestyle is your business. But if you take it on the road, it becomes everybody's business. So please, plan ahead, designate before you celebrate. Friends, don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service announcement brought to you by RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer Kelly Fox, talking about the planets this week. This week, the headlines, we have a full moon in Pisces, which happened on Sunday, and we also have Mars finally turning direct in Capricorn, and that's a sign it really likes. But just before the break, I was talking about the full moon in Pisces, and it was a very special full moon because it was forming a sextile to Saturn and a sextile to Uranus. And then on Saturday, the Sun was forming a trine to Saturn and a trine to Uranus. So this has been a very potent weekend in a good way, especially if you're an earth or a water sign, or you have planets in earth or water signs. So on Saturday, we had this grand earth trine, which is an extremely fortuitous energy, and it's very good for opportunities and just basically things being easy and flowing. Now, a grand earth trine is classified by astrologers as a major configuration, and it occurs in an astrological chart when 3 or more planets lie in an equal distance apart from one another, forming trines, which is basically a perfect triangle on the chart wheel. And so that's what it looks like. That's the visual of a grand trine. And then on Sunday with the full moon, so we had the sun and the moon, which obviously sun and moon, when they're opposite, is a full moon. And then, so the sun was forming this grand trine or triangle with Saturn and Uranus, and then the next day, the full moon in Pisces, it was forming a sextile to Uranus and Saturn. I know that sounds sort of like mumbo jumbo, but it's actually really important if you can follow along with that. It's extremely fortuitous to have this full moon, which is intense in itself, typically, and that's every month, to be part of this incredible auspicious configuration. So the grand earth trine on Saturday, and then the full moon sextiles on Sunday, what a weekend we've had. And so that energy will continue because, you know, in astrology, depending on the cycle of the planet, you know, the inner planets travel much faster than the outer planets. So the inner planets, their influence or their energies are much more fleeting than an outer planet. So, you know, by next week, the energy will reduce. But at the moment, we're sort of right in the thick of it, or we're just past the influence. So, you know, a grand earth trine, that just sounds really great in itself, without even knowing what that means. So a grand earth trine is very beneficial, and they're considered, a trine and also a sextile are considered soft aspects or positive aspects. So, you know, this grand earth trine that we've had on the weekend, and of course the involvement of the full moon with the sextiles, you know, it's all about luck and opportunity and things that are effortless. It's just sort of like things just flow. You know, we don't have to work hard at anything. So, you know, if you're fortunate enough to have a grand trine in any element, and that's fire, earth, air, or water, and this weekend we just happen to have it in earth, that signifies, you know, benefits that come your way. Not even because you've earned them. It's just sort of like you've been born with this grand trine, and sort of like being given extra karmic points or extra brownie points. So, you know, grand trines are all about creativity and energy flowing harmoniously. And, of course, that I'm also including the full moon with these sextiles to Saturn and Uranus. So it's just very much about luck and good luck and easy opportunity and, you know, feeling satisfied, or just, you know, things just come easy. We don't have to work too hard for them. You know, and because of the involvement of Saturn with the full moon on the weekend, this is a good time for professional advancement. So it's like, you know, we're a lot more disciplined and focused at this time with some soft aspects, the sextile and the trine to Saturn from the sun and moon. So, you know, we can rise to meet the challenge. We've got confidence. We might be able to work beyond our usual limits, particularly if it's toward a practical objective. And it's like vitality and energy are directed toward achieving practical goals. And, you know, of course, full moons in themselves are just intense energy anyway. But this particular full moon, usually because, you know, the energy of Pisces is not grounded, with the involvement of Saturn, it makes it very grounded. So we can make a lot of solid progress at this time, especially because, Mars is finally moving forward. So, this is actually a really good time for investing in long-term strategies and business plans. So if there's an opportunity that comes your way, especially this week, this is a good time to sort of think through the long term and maybe take advantage of that. And then we've got, the involvement of Uranus, which in some ways is the complete opposite to Saturn. Saturn's very grounding and stable and conservative in some ways in the past, looking at the past. But, Uranus is very much about, cutting edge, forward thinking. It's about thinking through something in a different and perhaps radical way. It's all about intellectual processes, inspiration, and, when you bring Saturn and Uranus together, with this full moon, it's all about maybe new solutions to old problems, I guess is one way to think about it, because the energy of Uranus is very inventive and innovative and, new perceptions and people being visionaries, and especially with the combination of that Pisces energy of the full moon. Pisces is a very psychic, intuitive sign, very much about being visionary and not just having gut instincts, but really being able to see things, that maybe we might not have been able to see previously. Also with the energy of Uranus, it's quite scientific. And as I said before the break, it's all about technology. So maybe using technology in innovative ways to old issues that we might have had. And so then, of course, part of this grand trine or the involvement of the full moon with Saturn and Uranus, that also meant that Saturn and Uranus were forming a trine as well. Because if you think about the triangle, you've got the Sun at one point and then of the triangle, and then you've got Saturn and Uranus at the other 2 points. And then if you put the moon opposite the Sun, that's the sort of visual of these planetary configurations of this past weekend. So when you've got Saturn trine Uranus as part of just taking that aspect alone without involving the Sun and the moon, this is really all about the process of change is and can occur without the usual backlash or rebellion or the red tape. It means progress without disruption, moving ahead toward practical, but maybe humanitarian goals, because Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, a sign of humanitarianism. So the connection between Saturn and Uranus might be about maybe the rediscovery of old ideas and conventions that now have new and different applications. So, at this time, with this type of energy of Saturn and Uranus, we might be able to control the pace of change instead of it like spinning out of control radically and, we have no control over that. So it's about integrating the old and the new like never before. And what turbo boosts this is the hook in with the full moon. Full moons are intense anyway, especially now if you've got the energies of Saturn and Uranus. Maybe like take what's valuable from previous systems and discard what doesn't work anymore. So, this is all about practical uses for established technologies, things that might be revolutionary. It's sort of like we can bring order to chaos in some sort of accelerated reform, or bring equal opportunities to everyone. So this is about recognizing that change is productive and embracing it instead of being put off by, as I said before, the red tape or being held back by bureaucracy or the powers that be or people that are not understanding our visions. This is about incorporating the old and the new together. So also this week we've got Mars turned direct this morning. And so Mars, that's Monday morning, and so Mars is the planet of action. So all that excitement around the full moon with Saturn and Uranus, it's like, making stuff happen, but really making stuff happen because Mars turning direct. Mars turned direct at 28 degrees Capricorn, and this is really excellent news because even though it turned retrograde in Aquarius late June, it continued its backward motion into Capricorn. Now, Mars really, really likes being coupled up with Capricorn. In fact, Mars is exalted when it's in Capricorn. Mars, its two favorite signs are Scorpio and Aries, and then, of course, its next up is Capricorn. So the energy now of Mars moving direct in one of its favorite signs is an extremely potent energy. Very, very potent. And if you are born late degree of an earth sign, and that's Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, this is incredible news for you. It's sort of like all systems go, turbo boost, supercharged, everything happening, especially if you are thinking long-term plans, because Capricorn is a sign that really likes to think about long-term. Don't take any shortcuts. Nothing should be temporary at this time. It's very much all systems go for the long term, putting plans into place. So you might find that because Mars has been retrograde, things have been halted or stalled. Steps are not moving in the right direction, and especially around career and ambitions, because Mars in Capricorn is all about career and ambitions and long-term planning and getting ahead and getting a promotion, possibly even a raise, especially with this grand Earth trine that we've had this weekend. So, as I said, it's a great news for the Earth signs, especially if you were born towards the end of Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, or you have planets in the later degrees of the Earth signs. This is fantastic news for putting plans into place. Now, when Mars is in Capricorn, this is all about discipline and focus to achieve your ambitions. So many of us, we're not afraid of hard work, especially with the grand Earth trine that involves Saturn in a really positive way for a change. And for many of us, we might find with these planetary activities that success is a very high priority for us now. And many of us might find that we're willing to do whatever it takes to get to where we want to go. Some people might accuse others of being a bit more calculating than usual, but really with all these harmonious energies and sextiles and trines, I'm not seeing a lot of negativity. Typically around the full moon, it's all about projection, but in this case, it's being very strongly supported by two pretty heavy hitters, planetary energies, Saturn and Uranus. So it's more, I'm definitely leaning more to using positive keywords than any sort of negative stuff going on. Sometimes there could be some ruthless energy in there, but they're trines and sextiles, so I won't be using those types of words. If there was a square from Saturn to the full moon, I'd definitely be using the word ruthless. But stomping over someone to get to the top, but there's nothing like that. It's very much everybody wins. It's like a win-win situation. And also with Mars turning direct in Capricorn, it's very much, we want tangible, measurable results. We want concrete evidence of our efforts. It's all about being pragmatic and, there could be a little bit of a risk, but again, it's all positive. It's not really, I'm not using negative keywords here. Some people might be a little bit too cautious, and in that case, miss out on a golden opportunity, but not really. These energies are so positive, that it's sort of like, it's sort of hard to use these, not so positive keywords around these types of energies. But it's going to be really important at this time to use your instincts to guide you toward, let's say, cautious risks. It's better to say, I guess, opportunities and long-term types of plans. You know, and of course, many of us might also have like really high standards or lofty goals. You know, we're not feeling daunted like we might have been without these like these sextiles and trines, like flying us along on a magic carpet in some ways. It's a visual I just got when I'm thinking about these energies. So it's sort of like once we take that small step forward, many of us with this Mars finally turning direct in Capricorn, many of us might be unstoppable. And again, that's especially if you were born later in the Earth signs, and that's Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. You know, you probably find that you've got a lot of stamina and perseverance, much, much more than usual. And, you know, even like overly serious, but that in a good way, if that makes any sense at all. The only thing is, it's like, don't burn yourself out, because, you know, you just got so much energy at this time. It's sort of like, there's a lot of focus. So it's like hyper-focused in some ways, which doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. So this Mars turning direct, I've been waiting for it for so long, and it's finally here. You know, just the backstory of the Mars retrograde, this cycle that we're in. So Mars is the planet of energy and action, and it entered Aquarius on May 15th. And Aquarius is the sign of progress and rebellion. And it turned retrograde on June 26th. And it's formed this T-square to Venus in Leo and Jupiter in Scorpio. So that's challenging energy. And of course, it immediately formed a square to Uranus at that time. And I think on that note, that's a good time to take a break. So stay tuned.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat?
Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer Kelly Fox, talking about the planets this week. And so the big news is we've got the Pisces full moon that involves Saturn and Uranus, which means bringing the past together with the future in a really big way. And also the other news, the good news, the really, really good news, which I've been waiting for a couple of months, is Mars, the planet of energy and action, finally turns direct. So just before the break, I was giving you a bit of a backstory about the Mars retrograde cycle. Mars first entered Aquarius May 15th, and then it turned retrograde June 26th, and it continued its backward motion from Aquarius into Capricorn. And so it moved into Capricorn on August 12th, and then it turned direct today, this morning, and it will continue into Capricorn. Now, Mars is very, very happy being coupled up with Capricorn. So this is really good news. This is probably like rocket fuel to anybody that has any planets at the later degrees of the Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. If you were born later in those signs, this is fantastic news for you. You can take those steps forward. That the past few months you might have been, it might have felt like driving with the brakes on, or things just not moving fast enough. You know, because Mars, when it's retrograde, it hinders any sort of direct action. If you think about it like a boiling pot with a lid on it, it causes frustration, self-doubt, people turning their energy and their anger inwards, because Mars is the planet of assertion, aggression, anger, physical activity, passion. So, these past couple of months with Mars being retrograde, the energy, people might have been turning all that frustration or impatience on themselves or even those closest to them. So the stifled energy of the Mars retrograde really intensified around July 27th, about a month after it turned retrograde. It formed a conjunction to the intense lunar eclipse in Aquarius on July 27th. So this made it even bigger. It just added fuel to the fire that was already going between the super potent energy of the lunar eclipse, and then, of course, Mars retrograde in Aquarius. So those two very potent, intense energies came together July 27th. There were a lot of people at that time, being really affected in a really big way. So it's sort of like, at that time, there might have been restrictions, restricted reactions or restricted emotions, no direct action, no direct expression of feelings because, remember the moon, with the lunar eclipse, it's a supercharged full moon. And so that, that energy is not going anywhere except inwards. And, a lot of people, turning it on themselves at that time. So this has been the cycle of this Mars retrograde since the end of June. And it's been, getting into war with, other planetary energies going on, and at odds with a lot of things. So it was very important that now this energy is like dissipating and we can sort of take a breath and being able to move forward. So, when Mars did turn retrograde, it was at odds with Jupiter, which is a planet of excess, the sign of Scorpio, and also with Venus. Venus is a planet of love. So there's been a lot of people with issues around their relationships. If you have any planets in fixed signs, and that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, there's been some issues maybe within your relationships. Trying to find compromise might have been difficult, but now we can all sort of move forward. We just have a brief reprieve until Mars moves back into Aquarius in a couple of weeks' time. So make the most of these next couple of weeks and get stuff done, basically. When Mars is in Capricorn, it's like we can think of the long term, go after our ambitions, and make stuff happen. So that's been the Mars cycle. Oh, and also during this Mars retrograde in August, we had a Mercury retrograde on top of it. So, Mercury retrograde, as many of us know, is all about difficulty or frustrations with communication and not being understood, and things coming up from the past and needing to deal with them, that sort of thing. Now, the other thing that makes this this Mars retrograde, happens not very often, thankfully, but when Mars turned retrograde, it also formed a wide conjunction to Pluto. So many of us were feeling so ambitious but not being able to make those things happen. And in some ways we could call that power hungry because of the involvement of Pluto. So it's sort of like, not really for noble reasons is this energy. It's more, ruthless and working behind the scenes. So that's all behind us now, thankfully. We can have some more patience and perseverance because Mars is so happy to be with Capricorn. And Mars is all about, when it's retrograde, it's all about irritation and feeling competitive and sort of being really upset because we can't move forward fast enough with what we want to do with this energy. So this is all good. It's all good. So make the most of the next couple of weeks when Mars is moving forward in Capricorn, and Capricorn is all about ambition and long-term planning and what we need to do to be disciplined to get to where we want and have success in all our endeavours. Now, how will Mars moving forward in Capricorn affect your sign? I'm going to whiz through this really fast. So if you're in Aries, finally your career plans can move forward. If you're a Taurus, this might have something to do with anything to do with overseas or any sort of legalities or higher education. If you're a Gemini, it's about shared money or taxes or inheritance. If you're a Cancer, this is all about your relationships. And if you're a Leo, it's time to put action around your health, diet, and fitness. If you're a Virgo, this might be about children or creativity or taking some sort of calculated risk. If you're a Libra, the focus for you with Mars turning direct is about home and family. If you're a Scorpio, communication, anything to do with siblings, even cousins. Sagittarius, money and possessions. Capricorn, this is about your self and appearance and your independence. If you're an Aquarian, pay attention to your intuition and your spirituality and your dreams. And if you're a Pisces, it's a time for manifestation and for seeking the support of friends. So there you have it. There is Mars. Mars is finally moving direct in Capricorn, and that's what it means for your sign. Now let's take a look at the other planetary activity this week. On Sunday, we had Venus in Libra forming a challenging square to Pluto in Capricorn, and that's very tough for the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. So what happens when Venus forms a square to Pluto? It's a little bit of a challenge when it comes to relationships. There's nagging doubts, maybe suspicions. We might find ourselves scrutinizing our closest companions, wondering if they're really where they say they are, or, maybe compulsion or obsession or jealousy with Venus forming a square to Pluto, which is a real bummer because, we've got this wonderful energy of, the grand Earth trine and feeling really great. And then you've got this like little thing here on the side with love planet Venus forming this challenging square to controlling Pluto. But it does give us a potential to transform from these urges to maybe control and manipulate and, move beyond. It's like we're sort of presented with these tough situations, but then we can sort of move beyond it. So hopefully, not too many of us have been locked in this unfortunate square, which is particularly hard on the relationships. And then on Monday, we've got Mercury in Leo forming a square to Jupiter in Scorpio. Tough for the fixed signs, this one, and that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So Mercury square Jupiter, it's like our minds are overstimulated at this time, big ideas, grand plans. Of course, there's optimism because of the involvement of Jupiter. But it's sort of not being very practical in some ways. Be really careful about ignoring any sort of detail. We are in the season of Virgo. Details are very important. And I know cumbersome with this Mercury square Jupiter, but it's important to pay attention to the detail as well as, brainstorm and think of the big picture. Be careful with exaggeration or any sort of know-it-all attitude. So there you have it for this week. And now for your weekly horoscope and how these planetary activities are affecting you. So if you are an Aries, with all this energy, a secret may come out this week. But really, it could be likely that it might be of a bit of a relief. So focus on reconciliation and healing where there has been discord in the past. So with this emotional upheaval behind you, you can look ahead to the calmer waters instead of all the turbulence we've had over the past couple of months. If you're a Taurus, mindfulness is important this week, so try hard to enjoy each moment as it comes along and don't overthink things. So there's a sociable vibe. This week. So time spent with friends will be really enjoyable. So just put aside your worries this week and just simply be. If you're a Gemini, this is the ideal week for showcasing your skills and for promoting yourself. And that's especially if you're self-employed or looking to start a new business. And don't be shy about selling your talents. Be sure to project confidence and people will most certainly buy into you. If you are a Cancer, there might be some eye-opening events which may give you a different perspective on an ethical or moral issue this week, and that's a good thing. You're expanding your mind all the time, and this is also a good time to sign up for a new course or an educational experience of some type. If you are a Leo, be sure to clear out your basement or your attic and put the finishing touches to a renovation or home improvement. Let go of things from the past which no longer serve you. There's a difference between collecting and hoarding, so stay on the right side of that line. If you are a Virgo, your relationship is front and center, and there are many special memories to be made this week. If you are single, look out for an instant connection with someone surprising, someone who most definitely isn't your type. If you are a Libra, work is very busy and quite stressful, but there's a lot of satisfaction to be had once the job is done and done well. So hang on in there. You are nearly done. So make an extra effort on this home stretch so that you can finish strong. If you are a Scorpio, passions run high this week, so it's a wonderful time to be in love. If you're single, your passion may be for a pet project instead. Whatever it is, it consumes your every waking moment and you're determined to make it count. So good for you, Scorpio. If you are a Sagittarius, family members may seem a little difficult or clingy this week, but you do have the patience to deal with this sensitivity. Nonetheless, it's important that you get some privacy and some downtime to just be you. Find some space where you can. If you're a Capricorn, it's information overload this week and everyone wants a piece of you. In order to cope with the chaos, you need to streamline. So cut down on any unnecessary work or social commitments and zero in on what really matters. The rest is just noise. If you are an Aquarian, well, an important project or phase in your life is nearing completion, and that's a really big feeling. Be proud of how far you've come. Even if this stage does bring an emotional ending to something, there will be exciting new beginnings ahead. And I have to remind you that 2018 and even 2017 have been the years of eclipses in your sign and your opposite sign. So there have been many, many changes for the fixed signs, and in particular, Leo and Aquarius. And finally, if you are a Pisces, there's a lot going on in this breathtaking week, and you are at the center of it all. You may feel stressed out, but most of this energy is positive and encouraging. So take 3 deep breaths. Great things are coming, and this whirlwind is just the start. So there you have it. There is your horoscope for the week. And just know that this week We have a full moon in Pisces, and it also formed a sextile to Saturn and Uranus, part of a very wonderfully potent, in a good way, wonderfully potent weekend that we've just come out of that involved a grand Earth trine. So the grand Earth trine had a triangle that had the Sun, Saturn, and Uranus all in early degree Earth signs. So if you're a Taurus and you're born in April, and you're an August-born Virgo or a December-born Capricorn, this is fantastic news for you. If you have any planets in Earth signs, even water signs, because we had the involvement of the Pisces moon, which is a water sign, forming sextile to Saturn and Uranus. Wonderful, wonderful energy for getting stuff done. Mars turning direct. This is also the headline. We can finally make stuff happen. That's it from me. Thank you for joining me. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox. This is the Astrology Show, and I wish you the very best for your week ahead.